They say that when the world turns its back on you, your family is supposed to be the safety net that catches you. But what happens when the very people who gave you life are the ones cutting the ropes, laughing as you free fall into the dark? My name is Ava, and for as long as I can remember, I was the quiet, invisible backbone of my family, while my older sister, Chloe, spent her days indulging in luxury and shopping sprees. I spent my youth working late nights at our family's high-end textile manufacturing company. I didn't mind the sacrifices because I genuinely believed I was protecting our shared future, protecting the legacy my father had spent decades building. I took pride in managing the complex logistics, handling difficult clients, and ensuring everything ran flawlessly behind the scenes. But what I didn't know that day, the day my reality shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, was that my dedication meant absolutely nothing to them. To my family, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was merely a convenient tool to be used until opportunity presented itself. It all unraveled on a cold winter afternoon when I accidentally discovered a hidden set of financial transactions. My father and Chloe had quietly partnered with a shady offshore investor, structuring a deal that transferred all the company's core intellectual property and physical assets into a new entity entirely under Chloe's name. When I walked into my father's office with the evidence, expecting him to be shocked or confused, I was met with nothing but icy indifference. He didn't even look up from his desk. Instead, he calmly told me that my vision for the company was too traditional, too boring, and that they were moving in a fresh direction, one that didn't include me. Before I could even find my voice, he handed me a pre-written resignation letter and told me to sign it. When I refused, his calm demeanor evaporated, replaced by a cutting bitterness. He told me I was entirely replaceable, a burden who lacked real talent, and that he wanted me out of his sight, out of his company, and out of his house by nightfall. The betrayal was swift and surgical, but the emotional blow came later that evening, as I packed my modest life into a few cardboard boxes. My mother and Chloe didn't offer a single word of comfort. Instead, they stood by the grand staircase, openly whispering and laughing at my expense. They mocked my tears, calling me overly dramatic and weak. Chloe even went out of her way to film me struggling to carry my heavy boxers out to my old, battered car, giggling as she posted the video to our extended family's group chat, with a caption that read, "Finally losing the dead weight." I drove away in the blinding rain, the echoes of their cruel laughter ringing in my ears, completely broken, deeply humiliated, and utterly alone in a world that suddenly felt terrifyingly vast. The days following that public execution of my dignity were an agonizing blur of deep heartache and heavy silence. I rented a cramped, damp studio apartment on the edges of the city, a space that felt light years away from the luxury I had helped create for my family. Every morning, I woke up with a suffocating weight in my chest, replaying the moments of their betrayal. I couldn't understand how a mother could look away, how a sister could mock my pain, and how a father could discard his own blood so effortlessly. The video Chloe made had circulated through our entire social circle, turning me into a lab. Former colleagues avoided my calls, and old family friends suddenly became distant. Believing the lies my father spread about my sudden departure, I felt entirely erased, a ghost trapped in a cycle of grief and profound rejection. For nearly 3 weeks, I allowed myself to drown in that sorrow. I cried until I had no tears left, staring at the peeling wallpaper of my tiny room, wondering where I had gone wrong. But somewhere in the depths of that absolute rock bottom, a quiet, freezing transformation began to take place within me. The tears stopped flowing, and in their place, a fierce, steady determination began to solidify. I realized that morning the loss of a family that never truly valued me was a slow poison. They expected me to crumble, to crawl back begging for their crumbs, and to validate their cruel mockery. I decided right then that I would not give them that satisfaction. My shattered spirit didn't break entirely. It fused into something much stronger. I decided to use the only things they couldn't strip away from me: my extensive industry knowledge, my unbreakable work ethic, and the deep, personal relationships I had cultivated with our suppliers over the years. I reached out to a prominent, an independent investor who had always respected my business acumen but refused to work with my father due to his arrogant attitude. Over a long coffee meeting, I laid out a comprehensive, highly modern blueprint for a lean, tech-driven textile supply chain that bypassed traditional manufacturing overheads completely. The investor was impressed by my clarity and the sheer precision of my data. He offered to fully fund the venture, providing me with a state-of-the-art facility and a seasoned team. Until everything changed, I had been working in the shadows. But now, it was time to step into the light. For the next month, I poured every ounce of my pain into my work. I operated on minimal sleep, refining our designs and directly reaching out to the major international buyers who had been growing increasingly frustrated with my father's rising prices and delayed deliveries, because I knew exactly what those clients needed and where my father's company was failing them. I offered them a more reliable, transparent partnership. One by one, our competitors' largest accounts began to quietly transition their contracts over to my new firm. My family was so busy enjoying their new offshore funds and bragging on social media about their grand success that they completely failed to see the storm gathering right outside their door. Exactly 45 days after the night they stood on the staircase mocking me, my family's house of cards violently collapsed. The sudden and simultaneous departure of their top 3 global clients triggered a severe liquidity crisis at their firm, because my father and Chloe had heavily mismanaged their new offshore partnership to fund a sudden influx of luxury cars and expensive vacations. They didn't have the cash reserves to sustain the sudden blow. Within a matter of weeks, their production lines halted. Their suppliers refused to ship raw materials on credit, and their prestigious company was formally pushed into foreclosure. I was reviewing our quarterly growth charts in my new corporate headquarters when my assistant walked in, looking uneasy. She informed me that a group of people was in the lobby, desperately demanding an urgent audience with me. I checked the security camera on my desk, and my heart took a steady, calm beat. It was them. When the doors to my office opened, the people who walked in looked nothing like the arrogant family who had laughed at my tears. My father's posture was completely shattered, his face lined with deep exhaustion and defeat. My mother looked frail and pale, while Chloe stood behind them, completely stripped of her usual vanity, her eyes red from crying. The silence in the room was deafening. My father walked toward my desk, his hands trembling as he laid out a stack of legal documents. In a voice that was barely a whisper, he began to plead. He confessed that they were facing total financial ruin, that their home was being repossessed, and that Chloe was facing serious legal liabilities for her role in the fraudulent offshore structure. He begged me to buy out their remaining shares, to use my immense capital to save the family name from public disgrace. My mother stepped forward, trying to hold my hand, crying about how blood is thicker than water, and how they had always loved me deep down. Chloe even apologized, sobbing as she admitted how wrong she had been to mock me. I looked at them, and to my own surprise, I didn't feel anger, nor did I feel a sense of twisted joy. I felt a profound, liberating detachment. The people who had tried to destroy me were now entirely dependent on my mercy. I gently pulled my hand away from my mother and looked my father in the eyes. I told them that I would not use my company's hard-earned resources to clean up the mess created by their greed and cruelty. I refused to save them. As security quietly escorted them out of the building, a wave of absolute peace washed over me. I realized that true revenge isn't about actively destroying your enemies. It's about building your own life so beautifully that their toxicity can no longer reach you. My family's mockery was meant to be my ending, but instead, it became the fuel that launched my true beginning. I walked to the window, looked out at the city, and finally breathed a sigh of relief, knowing I was completely free.